What's up, everybody? This is the show. I'm your host, Rob Blatt, and welcome back to the Adult Nerd Podcast, Episode 2. We're going to start with a little bit of follow-up from last week, Small Moments. That's the iOS and Apple TV app by Gavin St. Hours, our guest on Episode 1. Small Moments is back in the iOS and Apple TV app stores. You can get Small Moments. There'll be a link in today's show notes or at theadultnerd.com. You can also search for Small Moments in the app stores. Let's read the description, give you a little bit of background in case you missed that episode or in case you may have forgotten. Small Moments is a music video series and slow TV channel for iOS and Apple TV. Each episode features original music and video. Choose an episode, watch them all in order, or shuffle through them all. Whichever way you choose to watch, tap play, sit back, and enjoy. And new episodes are published bi-weekly. I suggest you give it a chance. Enjoy. The Twitter account for the Adult Nerd is also back. I had a little bit of an email and DNS and MX records issue over at theadultnerd.com, and a bit of personal pride. I solved all of those things that I personally ruined over the last 6 years while the domain laid dormant. So I'm happy to get that back. There'll mostly be announcements about the show. Episode 2 is a few hours late. I had a pretty rough cold the day I was supposed to be recording this introduction and releasing the episode. So if you were following me on Twitter, you found out. And then also the Adult Nerd newsletter. Send that out every Saturday. Some notes about the episode that passed and episode that's coming up, links to download, all of that jazz, and also some other links, including recommendations and just some kind of fun videos and all that. Last week in the newsletter, I suggest everyone give Firefox a shot. They have this new extension they're using called the Facebook Container extension. If you're concerned about Facebook collecting the traffic that you create on the web and using that against you or in advertisements towards you, it's got a pretty good way to prevent Facebook from reaching into basically your daily traffic and where you're going on the web. It's a step short of getting rid of your Facebook account, which for a lot of us is not really feasible. Also in there, this great video, super slow motion, 180,000 frames per second. I have a link to the video here where someone took this high-speed camera and aimed it at a CRT television, those old tube televisions, the heavy ones, at Super Mario Brothers, and how the actual lines are created within the TV itself to show you that image that looks like motion, but is actually flickering images. But I suggest you also give that a look. There's a link to last week's newsletter at theadultnerd.com/newsletter, and you could subscribe and get updated regularly. That's all for the preamble for the show. I'll say in advance, if you're listening and you haven't done so, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get your podcasts. Anyway, on with the show, and thanks for listening. This week's nerd is Chris Cavallari. Chris, we have an interesting past, mostly because I learned how to pronounce your last name today.
After what, like 10 years?
Yes, 10 years or so. You have gone by Chris Cavs on the internet for the longest time, and I think I just called you Chris Cavs for the longest time as well.
Yeah.
So today, we're not necessarily talking about Chris Cavs. Of course, we are. But I want to talk to you about the Acadian. The Acadian, it brings to mind Maine. It really pulls that feeling out of you. And then when I think about what a business would be that is focused on that and named that, well, I think you hit it right on the head. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the Acadian?
Sure. So the Acadian, I call it the Acadian Maine Custom Carry. It's a little shop I made inspired by Maine, where I make pens, hand-turned wood pens, and assorted leather carry items and accessories, kind of aimed towards people who love Maine, or even just people who love the outdoors or just love that kind of aesthetic. So I basically kind of fell in love with Maine when I moved here about 9 years ago, and I love the style, I love the history of the place, and I've been wearing flannel, plaid flannel since I was a teenager. Jeans and flannel is kind of my uniform. So I kind of fit right in here. Now I've got this big bushy beard, and so it kind of fit my style and my aesthetic as well. Being a maker for most of my life of some sort, whether it was a photographer or just building random stuff in my basement at home, or now making pens, handmade pens, and leather wallets and notebook covers. I've always been a maker, and so I wanted to kind of combine all those things into something that people would like, and I found out that people did like it. So
So the pens that you make.
yeah.
Question about those.
Hmm.
So what's the difference between a pen that you make and a pen that I buy for like a dime?
Yeah. My pens are made from either historic or exotic or even domestic woods. So what I do is I put them onto a lathe, I turn it down into sometimes I'll add something like a resin.
We may have to back up here for a moment because so let's pretend that I live in Brooklyn and I roughly dress the same as you.
Yeah.
However, in my apartment in Brooklyn, maybe I don't know what a lathe is.
Okay, so no doubt you've seen them. They're those little machines that spin wood, and a guy takes a tool, like a chisel type thing, and sticks it into the wood, and it kind of splatters the wood all over the place, and then we end up making things like the wooden spindles on your banister, for your railings going down the stairs.
So you're taking now I'm just showing that I'm the city mouse here. So you're taking a piece of wood and turning it into a pen.
Yeah, I'm taking wood and making it smaller.
Yes. That's a thing, and I definitely know it is.
Yeah.
How do you get there?
The pens that I make currently, there's two types of ways to do this. One is through kits. So you can buy these metal hardware kits where you turn the wood down, you buy your own, wood, or you go harvest it yourself. And once you turn it down and you sand it and you put a finish on it, it transforms into this beautiful piece of art. And then these various kits you can put together, you turn it down to a certain size, and then you put the kit together with the wood, and it becomes this pen. The second way is to do it completely from scratch. And that's a different skill set altogether that I'm planning on doing in 2018, where you take like a piece of wood and some polyester resin, and you cast it, and then you turn it and you drill it and you tap threads into it for the cap and the body, and you can make a very beautiful fountain pen. But those they take a lot longer, and a lot more skill goes into them.
Backing up even further from that.
Yeah.
So that's how it's done physically.
Yep.
And it sounds simple. And I'm only going to say it sounds simple. But then the larger question is, how does Chris get to a point where you say, I have wood, I have a lathe, and I want to start building and creating pens? These unique pieces. I mean, I've seen them. They're beautiful. These unique pieces of art that also function as tools.
I've been a photographer and videographer for my entire career, and a social media manager.
Guru, ninja, warrior.
Whatever you want to call it, samurai. Yeah, it's quite a jump to go from that to making pens and leather items. So what happened was, in 2016, my wife was pregnant, and we were getting ready for the baby, and I was just kind of like, I'm going to need something to kind of take my mind off things, when it gets, just have a little hobby or something, because I'm going to be at the house. I'm not going to be able to go out taking photos all the time. I need to be around. So what's a hobby I can get into that keeps me at the house but gets me away? And that's not to say that my wife doesn't have stuff she can do. We split the duties. But we were walking around a store called Harbor Freight, which I don't know if you know what it is. It's basically a discount tool company. Mm-hmm. We were just kind of wandering around, and I saw this lathe for like $100. It's a small bench top lathe. Hey, why don't I get this? And my wife was like, yeah, go for it. So I picked it up that day and brought it home, and had no idea how to use this thing that spins wood at 3,500 RPMs.
So you just thought basically you were going to get something to help you destroy wood in your garage for a while.
Pretty much, yeah. I was like, I had gotten into part of the everyday carry thing is fidget toys, and I was going to make these spin stations for tops, metal, heavyweight tops. Like, people get into this stuff. It's unbelievable, and it's amazing, and it's beautiful. But you can buy tops that are hundreds of dollars, made of metal and intricate designs. So I was going to make these spin stations and sell them to these top people. So I got the wood and I started spinning and I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm sitting there, probably doing stuff really dangerously, taking probably dull tools that I bought for $20 at Harbor Freight and just kind of sticking it at the wood and hoping it didn't smack me and cut my face open. So eventually what I did was I started looking at YouTube videos about how to turn. And I think what happened was I found one that this guy was making a pen out of this really beautiful wood, and I just started watching his videos and I was just blown away by how cool everything was. And I was like, I could do that and give them away as gifts. So I did a little research, found how to get the pen kits and how to get the wood and all the other tools I needed for this, and that was that.
So you're essentially self-taught.
I am, yeah. It's mostly YouTube videos and a couple of online forums and stuff like that. And then I did take a class at a local wood store for bowl turning, but otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty much self-taught.
And so you touched on something that I wanted to also talk about, and it's something that you wrote about on the Acadian's blog recently, which is you said everyday carry. And I think for at least me, when you say everyday carry, I think to myself, all right, I used to have a floor mat or a welcome mat that faced my door every day that said keys, wallet, phone. To me, in my mind, that's everyday carry, but I also know that's not everyday carry because it's not, it could never be that simple.
Well, it can be. That's the thing. So when we talk EDC, everyday carry, we're talking about the things that you carry with you that you can't go without. And I call it like the art and science of everyday carry. And basically, it started out as like a movement to cut back on clutter and all the junk that we carry with us to work or to school and be more efficient about it. So, for instance, like, keys and wallet and phone as you walk out the door. Well, some people wanted slimmer wallets. So we've got these, really slim wallets that they could stick in their front pocket, good for urban people like you, right? So we've got that. And then the keys. A lot of people just have their keys kind of stuck on a key ring and jingles and jangles all over the place. Well, there are actually these key holders now that you can stack the keys side by side and they don't jangle and they just flip out when you need the right key. And, that kind of simplifies things, makes it a lot easier to carry with you. And it just kind of goes from there. People carry these tactical flashlights and fancy wallets and pocket knives and fidget toys and all sorts of stuff. It all goes in their pockets. And EDCers love to figure out ways to make it really efficient to carry that stuff. It's all the stuff that they want to bring with them on a daily basis, carried efficiently.
So you're not doing just something minimally, you're doing something in a way that adds function to what you're doing on a regular basis.
Exactly. And a lot of people like to have that function, but they want to have that form as well. They want to have the beauty, the simplicity, just the style that goes with it. So that's why a lot of EDCers love they either fall into like the tactical or they fall into the rustic. So the tactical is like, tactical flashlights, tactical knives, the black metal type things.
Everything black, everything metal with
everything black, everything metal, carbon fiber, wallets, things like that. Wallets that have switches that can flip your card out when you need it. And then there's the kind of rustic side, which is where I'm at, which is leather and kind of more natural type feel to things, leather and metal, brass and chrome, things like that.
Things built to last.
Yeah, exactly. So you get those kind of two, at least in my experience, you get those kind of two things. The art of everyday carry, it kind of goes towards style and simplicity, and the science goes more towards function and paring things down. So either way, it's trying to get things efficient.
If I'm looking to embrace this a little bit better,
yeah.
If someone's looking to expand what they're doing, but also obviously, as we're talking about, minimize it, where's like a good place to start thinking about?
Well, usually what I do is I sit down and I think about what are the things that I use the most during the day that I find that I'm always reaching for, either going into my bag for or, reaching into my pocket. What are those things? So for me, it's always my wallet, my keys. For you, it would be your wallet, your phone. for me, it's like a pen and a notebook. I always have those with me. What are the things that you can't live without on a day-to-day basis? So
Hmm.
in New York, I think it's illegal to carry a pocket knife larger than 3 inches or something like that. For me, I carry a pocket knife with me wherever I go because I always need one. So, but I have a pocket knife, a pen, a wallet, my beard comb, and
Got to
a
stay
fidget.
fresh.
Yes, exactly, and a fidget toy. So it really just, make a list of the things that you need on a daily basis. What are the things you're always reaching for? Then what I do is figure out, well, how can I make these fit in one pocket? How can I get them all into one or two pockets comfortably? And then it's a matter of finding the right things to pare down. So a lot of us don't carry cash anymore. So a card wallet would be great for you, real slim card wallet that can go in your front pocket. I always carry a pen with me. Some people like the Fisher Space Pen, which is this nice little small compact pen. You can write upside down with it. A pocket knife I always have with me. I made a little sheath for the pocket knife and the Fisher Space Pen so that they can be together in my pocket all the time. So things aren't jangling around in my pocket. Things aren't moving around. I know where everything is, and it's all in a nice, easy, reachable spot.
The pocket knife sheath comes in from what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about some leather work.
Yeah.
When we met 10 years ago, at least, you were not a Mainer, but you were someone that lived in New Jersey.
Yep.
And when I think of New Jersey and I remember you were just over or just through the tunnel.
Yep.
When I think about that area, I don't necessarily think about people making their own leather sheaths for their knives. So where did that come from?
Well,
in your life?
I'm not actually originally from New Jersey. I'm from Connecticut, Western Connecticut, and I was a Boy Scout. I grew up going camping and being in the outdoors.
This is all starting to make sense now.
Yeah.
This is all starting to come together. There's something that I was missing, and this might have been it.
Yeah. So, well, I grew up in a city, one of the like 5 major cities in Connecticut, but because I was a Boy Scout, we always went out to the woods and went camping, and I enjoyed that a lot. So my background comes from that, and I would go to summer camp. And one year I took the leatherworking merit badge at summer camp because I thought it would be kind of cool. And I made a little pouch, little leather pouch, and stamped it and stitched it and all that kind of stuff. Or actually, I laced it, some plastic lace. And I still have that pouch to this day. So this was like 20 years ago, and I still have that thing. So it kind of is a testament to how well these leather goods can stand up to the test of time. When I was thinking about that a couple of years ago, I was like, well, that was a lot of fun when I made that. And I've always kind of dabbled in it. And actually, when I was in New Jersey, I was started making some leather stuff. Then I picked up some leather at a art store or something like that, and just kind of dabbled with it again. And then it fell off again, and then I moved to Maine and got caught up in life here. But again, when my wife was pregnant with our son, I started thinking I need something to kind of keep me busy, keep my hands busy, especially since I was kind of frustrated with my work situation and being on a computer all day. So I wanted something tangible, and there isn't a hugely steep learning curve. It's just you have to have patience with it, and so it becomes very zen when you're cutting things out and tracing and stitching and all that kind of stuff. So I really decided that was a good place for me to go was leatherworking. So it started when I was a Boy Scout, and it made its way to my current life at 39 years old almost.
So if someone's trying to get into, not necessarily this specifically, but if someone hears this and they're thinking about that transition that you made from sitting on a computer to making something that is close to home and you can do with your free time and with your hands, what's the process to find that inspiration? Like, was there a point for you that it all clicked?
For the longest time, like I was like, I'm never gonna use a lathe. That looks so boring. And then one day I said, I'm gonna try it, and fell in love. So, you know, it's just trial and error. That's really what it comes down to. Is just trying things out. If you like it, stick with it. If you don't like it, then move on, and you'll find the things that make you happy, that make you whole. You start to get into this flow It's not easy. It's not always fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fulfilling, and that's what really drives people who do this type of work. The people who make things with their hands. It's fulfilling. It's not necessarily always happy, but it's something that makes you whole. And so that's why, that's how it kind of came to be. It was piecemeal over time, kind of like my story. I started when I was a kid, leatherworking, and then I just built up. I've always been a tinkerer, and I always loved working with wood too. So doing the building of things, making things, it's always been something that spoke to my heart and made me feel like that was something that's satisfying.
And pulling that all together.
Yeah, that's a ramble. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, trust me, this is the show for rambling. The thing I've always encouraged anyone I'm talking to in this kind of a scenario is to ramble until you find it.
Yeah.
And the questions I ask are mostly rambling anyway. Well, I get to the question eventually. The wonderful thing about this is that I can edit. I won't edit this part because obviously then I'm gonna just say how it's made. But
yeah,
you get there eventually.
But yeah, and that's the thing. Like as a maker, you try things out, and as a podcast producer, as a recording artist, as any type of artist or creator, you try things until you get there. You're gonna fail. At some point you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fail. It's learning from those mistakes and moving forward and making something better that makes you a good maker, so of any kind.
Let's talk about that failure, shall we? since you brought it up. So the question really about failure in this is that what does for something like this, what does failure look like?
Well, so here's the thing about failure is like there are varying levels of failure. Like you can fail small or you can fail big. The question is, where do you draw the line at, okay, I failed this and now it's time to move on. So for instance, I had a video production company, and for the longest time I kept trying to make it work, and I tried different things and it just wasn't happening. I failed in that thing, and I said, you know what? I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm not finding fulfillment in it, and I'm not helping other people with my craft. So it's time to move forward. I guess when it's time to move on from a failure is when you're not getting fulfillment out of it, and nobody else is either.
Much like when we first started our conversation tonight. So for the listeners at home, we had scheduled our recording. We were pretty much on time, and then it came time for me to record. And through multiple circumstances, could not get it to work tonight. So we fought for a little bit, fought the technology. We got it working.
Well, and that's the thing. We learned, right? We learned from that experience, and now it's better.
Absolutely.
It became better like as soon as we switched up and tried a different method. So
it's funny because you and I have this will be a theme. This is a theme for the first two episodes of the show, at the very least.
Yeah.
You and I have hosted a podcast before.
Sure.
When you were running your video production company and I was running essentially it was a podcasting recording studio.
Yep.
It happened to be out of my home at the time. I had a studio for a little bit, which did also, oddly enough, which also failed.
Yeah.
It was a little ahead of my time in that regard.
It certainly was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It was amazing to me to sit for a while and say, like, well, I said it to you a few times, like, I can't believe I used to do this like for work on a regular basis. And now this is what I'm reduced to. Like, can you try this app? Can you try this link? All right, let's try it this way, this way, this way. We got it to work eventually. Something to learn from, obviously I will never make these errors again is what it comes down to.
And you know what that's called? Practice.
Yes.
That's really what it is. It's just practice. When you practice something, you make mistakes and you learn from them, and you move on and you become better at it. So that's really, people are trying to make it more complicated than it is. You get all these gurus who are out there saying, you have to fail hard, fail fast. And it's like, no, that's called practice.
Sounds like a very specific guru you're speaking of.
Not necessarily. I've heard several of them say it, but I know who you're thinking of. But I mean, it is. It's just practice. It's something we've been taught since we were little kids. Playing baseball, you got to go to practice. Playing sports or whatever, playing checkers, playing chess. Any of those games. Going to school is practice. You're gonna fail stuff. You can't fail and then be like, okay, what's next? You have to go out and find what's next. You have to say, okay, you have to ask. There's never a stupid question when it comes to learning stuff. So you have to ask somebody who knows.
You learned from the experiences. You built the tools necessary, both in the physical tools in your hands, and then also you acquire the tools that your hands will use. What starts the process of deciding I'm going to make this a business for myself?
You have to be open to opportunity. So what happened with me was that I just started saying, I just started posting pictures on my social media accounts of some of the pens I was making. And, one day somebody said, "Hey, can you make me a pen for, so and so for their birthday?" And I said, "Sure, I can do that." And so I bought another kit and got some wood and made the pen and finished it and sent it off. And they loved it. And then another person said, "Hey, can you make me 5 pens for my friends? I'm going to give them out to as gifts." And I said, "Sure." It basically came down to word of mouth. People just started asking me if I could make them some, and I said, "All right, well, now my time is worth something, so I'm going to start charging for these things." And it kind of built from there. And then at a certain point, I was doing so many of them, I said, I should probably make this into an actual business. So I spent all of last year just making them, selling them occasionally. Didn't really do too much. But at the beginning of this year, 2018, is when I actually made the Acadian an official business. Went to the town clerk and registered and all that kind of stuff. It was a conscious decision to commit myself to making it work. You have to do concrete steps to move yourself forward. That's my thing is I always say keep moving forward. I think that was a Walt Disney quote too. He always said keep moving forward, and that was kind of where I said I need to make this happen. It's something I enjoy, but more importantly, even in the times when I get frustrated, things break, and I'm behind deadlines and things like that, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm still finding satisfaction from it.
As you and I are speaking, we're speaking on the day that the first episode of The Adult Nerd is being released for timing purposes of where this interview winds up sitting, and it'll be released in about a week from tonight. So where's the business stand now, and what's the next step for you?
So right now, I am kind of on the cusp of a lot of several different steps that I'm going to be taking. I'm not full time on it right now. I am still working a day job, which a lot of small business entrepreneurs and owners are.
Wait a second here.
Yeah.
And you've said this in this interview, but it hasn't really sunk in before. So you're working a full-time job.
Yep.
And you have a young child.
Yeah.
And a family.
Mm-hmm.
And
I bought a house.
And a house. Oh man, I went through that in the last year as well. You have all of this, and then on top of that, you're doing this.
Yeah. It's not just me who's making sacrifices. My family makes sacrifices to help me build this dream as well. Both my wife contributes she even helps me, make some of the stuff, but she, takes the kid for a day and I go and make stuff, and then I take the kid for a day and she goes and does her thing. So it's not just my sacrifice, but it's definitely dedication. And you'll only find that dedication in something you're passionate about. And I always talk a lot about passion. Passion is pain. In my case, it's the drive to alleviate that pain by doing the thing you love so much. I try to do something with the business every night, every day. Whether it's updating my website or drilling out a new template for a wallet or something like that, or coming up with ideas for pens, or working on getting wholesale or retail positions, or whatever. It hurts when I'm not doing it.
That's where we are now.
Yeah.
And For a business of where you are, what's that next step forward? What's that next toe in the water for you?
Well, like I said, making those custom bespoke made from scratch pens is the big step this year, but also getting into the craft shows, and not just the Knights of Columbus Hall or high school bake sale craft shows. I'm talking like the big spender craft shows. So that's a next big step is kind of getting the name the Acadian out there, and that's by being in person at these places. There's so much you can do online, but when it comes to bespoke items like this, custom handmade stuff, you really have to make that personal connection. So that's a big one too. And that's tough for me as an introvert, where I like to live online, but if I want to make this happen, it's going to be getting out there and doing stuff in person. I think those are the two big steps. And I guess also, like I said, wholesaling, working in bulk uh, for retail shops and then consignment. I have a person literally down the road from me who's opening a shop, was interested in some of my items. Working on getting into retail stores in the area. Portland, Maine has this big reputation as not only a foodie town, but also kind of like Brooklyn North, basically, is what they call it. So, that kind of rustic look, the rustic dry goods.
Yeah, but it's really rustic. It's actually rustic.
It's actually rustic.
We have to import it.
Yes, exactly. Apparently, a lot of Brooklyn is moving to Portland, by the way. So
I'll keep that in mind.
yeah, and I try to imbue a story and everything. All the products I make, and whether that's the name of the product or the historical, a historical piece of wood. I make one called The Order, and it's based on Harry Potter, because I literally got 5 pieces of wood from Christchurch College in England, where they filmed the Harry Potter films. So I'm literally, actually, I also have 5 pieces of wood from the oak tree in Shawshank Redemption, where
So I think this winds up being important to some listeners right now. Is that, are these items is this wood that you have that you are going to make something available, or is this things that are available now?
Little of both. For instance, I do have one Harry Potter pen made and ready to go. I just haven't put it on the store yet. The Shawshank wood, I'm actually drying it out because it was a live tree and it was very wet. So those are going to be limited edition, highly sought after pens. But some of the stuff is going to be made to order as well.
So that's definitely just of note for the folks listening, that you're going to want to pay attention to the end of the show when Chris tells you how to find this stuff.
Yes.
You've said these, the Harry Potter, the Shawshank Redemption. What's been the favorite item that you've made so far?
My favorite or a customer favorite?
Your favorite.
I have fallen in love with what's called burl wood, Burl. So burls, in case you don't know,
which I do not.
If you ever go around and you see a tree, if you go, you'll even see them occasionally in the city. Yes, you will. The tree has it looks like a giant tumor on the side of it, right? It's got this big growth coming out the side of the tree. That's called a burl. It's basically an abnormal growth due to stress on the tree. The grain pattern, instead of being straight or kind of slightly curved, it just goes all crazy wild, spirally and curly and all that kind of stuff. And it gives this what's called chatoyance. And chatoyance is kind of this quality of reflection within the grain of the wood, reflection of light within the grain of the wood. So it kind of gives off this sparkly, shimmery look to the wood when you finish it. When you put a lacquer or a hard finish on it. Those have been my favorite pens to make. What I also do with some of those is I'll segment them. So I'll basically cut the wood in half, put a piece of metal, a piece of contrasting wood or a colorful resin plastic piece, and then another piece of metal, and then the other end of the wood. Glue it all together and then turn that. And it gives, once you turn it round, it kind of gives this angled circular look to it that kind of comes out really cool, and everything just gets all sparkly and shiny, and and it makes it a really special, unique writing instrument. It's just really cool, and those are my favorite ones.
So if someone wants to take a look, if someone wants to peruse the goods, if someone wants to see what's going on with you and with the Acadian, where do they go?
So the two things that I keep the most up to date are my website, which is theacadian.me. It's TheAcadian.me, and my Instagram account, which is the Acadian MCC. Those two are where you're going to find all my stuff going on. Instagram, I post stories and I post pictures all the time. And then
I've seen you do live video of making some stuff.
Yep. Occasionally, I try to do a live video of making a pen or making I just made a leather wallet the other day. That's a lot of fun too. So I love getting the interaction of live video. I've always been a proponent of live video. So, and you know that we've done that together.
We did a what was that, 13-hour?
Oh God, yeah.
9 years ago. We did a political 9-hour long live stream.
That was crazy.
It was intense, I would say. It was very warm as well, from what I recall.
It was hot in that studio. Yes, it was.
When we did a talk at a conference together.
Oh, that's right, we did.
That's where we both met. I believe where we both met the smartest man in the world, Saul Colt.
Oh yes,
was a future guest on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that was a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we go back quite a bit, and we've done a few things together.
Yeah. We were both kind of tech early adopters, so that's why I love the Instagram live stuff. I also did YouTube live and Facebook live and all that kind of stuff, but I just find keeping it all in one place on Instagram is really nice. So yeah, the Acadian MCC on Instagram is where to find me there.
Chris, thank you so much for being the second guest on The Adult Nerd.
I'm honored. Thank you, Rob.